Hey, welcome to Flight Test. I'm Josh, and this is Peter.
Hey guys.
And today we're going to be showing you how to build the FT Mini Cruiser. Now, if you haven't seen the FT Mini Cruiser, we actually released two twin designs at the same time.
Oh yeah, that was so much fun. We did all that stuff.
It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. Now, Peter designed the mini cargo plane. There's going to be a build video for that as well, too.
Yep, that's coming up here shortly.
But these two planes fly wonderful together. One's designed more for function, which is yours.
Yep.
And mine's designed a little bit more for speed and cruising around, aka the FT Cruiser.
Actually, you probably do a little bit of both. I mean, certain things maybe were good for one or the other, but either way, they're both fun.
The biggest thing is we want you guys to fly together, have some fun together, and these are two very unique designs that can have a lot of fun, also very easy to build. Now we're going to be trying something new. It's hard for me to explain, so Brian's going to explain it for me.
Hi.
That's Brian, by the way.
Hi, I'm Brian.
He's behind the camera a lot.
I am behind the camera. It is hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah, but he did something new. What is it, Brian?
Can we do that again? Sorry.
No, one take. That's all you get.
No. Hi guys, I'm Brian. I'm one of the editors here at Flight Test.
That was way too professional.
Was it?
It's totally.
Oh, okay.
Totally way too.
Well, we're gonna try to help you guys navigate the build videos a little bit easier. So right now you should be seeing a bunch of things popping up, and you can click these annotations to jump to specific parts of the build if you'd like. If you're watching this on a mobile device, you can check the description, and we'll have all the time codes in there so that you can find your position in the video a little bit easier.
I'm pretty sure every commenter loves you now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So hopefully that'll be a little bit easier for you guys.
And I'm officially out of a job because he didn't say simply once.
Not once.
All right, get back to work.
All right.
Now, if you haven't already, get your materials in order. There are some things we want to talk to you about before you start building the airframe that would be so helpful if you get in line. And that's one thing is centering your servos. Get your servos centered up. And also, we're going to show you a picture right now. This is how you want to set up your servos. Opposing sides, and also the spacing on your linkage stoppers about a 1/2 inch out and a 1/4 inch out. It's basically about 1 centimeter out and about 7 millimeters out for your elevator and your rudder. So get those in order. It's going to make life a lot easier. Also get a Y harness and get a distribution cable for your ESCs because you're going to need to tap both of those, aren't you?
You're going to need basically two of the JST
males. Now, if you don't know how to solder that up, we have some video links down below that'll show it to you. This is actually a very similar process to the big cruiser we're building, just with different connectors and different gauges wires. So both the differential mixing, everything will cross over from one to the other. Now, just like a lot of other designs, this does have a power pod, but the difference with the minis is the power pods have custom thrust angles dialed into it.
Yeah, you have down thrust in yours, don't you?
Got a little bit of down thrust. Yours actually has no down thrust whatsoever.
I just omitted it completely in mine, but you'll guys find out more about that in the cargo plane video.
But before you start, you're going to need to go ahead and build this. The biggest thing with this is make sure when you build yours that you have the down thrust as you see it right here. On this, the A-fold diagram, the A is going to be pointing towards the side that you need to glue your firewall on. Also, if you haven't downloaded the free plans yet, go ahead and do so, or you can buy the speedboat kit from our stores, have it at your doorstep in a couple days. Get your materials in order and we'll get started. Now, the first thing we're going to get started with is going to be the wings.
Yep, you're going to get your wings?
I'm going to get my wings.
You already got your wings.
They actually look like wings, don't they?
Yeah, that's going to pin them on your shirt and wear them around.
Exactly. For this, it's pretty darn simple. We do have some access hatches that are cut into this that are similar. If you built the big FT Cruiser, they don't exist on the bigger one because it's a lot easier to route your wires.
Yeah, this is actually something new, too. That's way easier for, like, the minis and stuff. I hope to see some more of the airplanes, actually, too.
Exactly. Now, one thing I do is I kind of keep my wires a little bit sloppy, but Peter, you do a really good job dressing it. What are some things you'd suggest to people before getting their wire harnesses all soldered up and dressing their wires?
I would say probably continue on watching this video. Look for where your electronics are. Like some of you guys already have like pre-done electronics where you've already shortened your wires in some areas. So kind of look around your plane, like how you're going to fish them through. Think a little bit ahead before closing the wing up. Even though with this one with the access panels, it's not that big of a deal. But you guys should just plan a little bit accordingly so we don't cut too big holes in your plane.
Yeah, it's still good to have a method there. So if you see, okay, this connector that I have for this servo is not going to fit very easily, go ahead and run some string through it or something.
Yeah.
Now, before we get started, we're going to go ahead and tape this together. So what I like to do is on the leading edge and the trailing edge, mark this down. Now, for all you wonderful folks scratch building out there, this follows the same sequence on the free plans that we have. Black is cut through, red is score cut, and blue indicates either a crease area or a mark area. You can see now this is kind of pushed together.
Yep.
Now at this point we can go ahead and just put a strip right over the middle. Make sure you get this seam as tight as possible because the tighter it gets, the stronger the center of the wing's going to be.
And also the way I like to apply tape too is to actually start one corner and keep the back end floating off because for some reason tape just bothers me. Like when I see wrinkles in my planes, I hate having wrinkles.
That looks really good.
So I slowly just work it over the ends and get it nice and smooth.
That is why you are foam and tape, my friend.
Yeah, I use tape for everything. That makes a nice taped edge, and there's no wrinkles in it whatsoever.
Beautiful, beautiful. At this point, you got the hot glue gun ready for me?
Yep, all good to go.
We're going to open this up. Yeah, and put a nice healthy amount so it actually squeezes out.
Oh yeah.
We're going to seam this over
Yeah, I've been a little stingy every time I build these wings.
Well, every ounce does matter, but hopefully we're going to scrape off as much as possible. Now you got lots of little castings here. Just going to take this off, just squeegee this off. Don't worry about that tape. We'll cut that out, so if any glue falls down in there, it's not going to make a big difference at all. And we're going to let this thoroughly dry. Just as it sits like this, it's going to make a very strong joint. But we're going to follow up with this afterwards and make it even stronger.
Yep.
One thing we can do with this, we can take, if there is some extra, we can simply just fold this right over on top and bring it to the inside.
Yep. Do the same over here.
Yep. Now Peter, go ahead and run another tape here, right down the middle.
I thought I used a lot of tape.
One thing we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to...
Yeah, you like that sound, don't you?
Dude, I love it. We're going to go ahead and reestablish the top and bottom surfaces here. Most of the strength comes from this foam board through the paper. So by putting the tape back on it, we're reestablishing that strength. Beautiful. Now we're ready to go ahead and just cut some seams through here. Because the hot glue kind of went and mushed through the middle there, we're just going to go ahead and reestablish those creases.
Yep, don't push down too hard.
Nope, don't go through the paper on the other side. If you do, use some paper or some tape and then reestablish that. At this point, we can crack this open and cut our double bevels. Now if you've never done a fold over wing from our designs before, the double bevel is going to be cut just like a hinge line, but we're going to do it on both sides of the leading edge here. That way when the wing folds over, it's not going to give you a very blunt, harsh leading edge. That'll give you a poor flying wing, won't it? So to do this...
Also, you run the risk of tearing the paper too.
Exactly. To do this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hold the blade not at 90 degrees, but we're going to hold it at a very acute angle like this. The longer you can get that blade cutting through, the less likely this blade's going to dull prematurely, but it's also going to guide much easier. And our goal is not to go through the paper right here in the center. You can see that little cavity down here. So take your time. You can also use sandpaper on a sanding block. What I like to do is hold it kind of under my arm, stabilize it. You can also hold it down on the table. And I'm going to guide it on through.
Yeah, and this is the part where I like to use a brand new blade too, because I hate chafing up the foam when you do that. Because if you use a dull blade, you're just going to run into trouble.
Yeah, if your blade's getting dull,
just grab a new one. It's not really worth all the frustration.
And you notice we don't use a lot of number 11 exact knives. A lot of people use number 11. We don't use that too often. They're expensive and they dull, in my opinion, very quickly. Now there's nothing to say that you can't go over this a couple times over to get this seam as tight as you want. I actually like to get it a little bit sharper because this is a very thin wing. So I can even go over it a couple times here and get the lay on nice and flat.
Cut twice, measure once.
There you go.
Pretty sure that's the wrong way to say it, but yeah.
In this case it works. And we're going to go ahead and do the exact same process on the bottom of the wing here. If you do cut through that center paper, not a big deal. You can simply reinforce it with tape. Just make sure you reinforce it before you glue the wings together. Once again, if say you're working and you're working with a child, you don't want them to work with
Are you calling me a child?
No, not at all.
I'll hurt you, Josh.
If you're working with someone that's not allowed to use maybe razor blades, sanding blocks work good.
Yep.
But if you can see here, we have a nice groove that's nice and sharp. Now this is where we're going to do something a little bit different. Because this wing is so narrow, if I went ahead, normally drag the obstacle sticks through here and kind of open this area up. If we do that now, what's going to happen is we can't fully crush this area.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to lay this down now. And this is where definitely having a friend is in handy. Go ahead and with nice flat pressure, fold this over as tight as possible.
Yeah, if they have like a 2x4 sling too, you can grab it and fold it over.
Very good point.
Yeah,
something long and flat, right?
Yeah, because it's not really a big deal, but you can put creases in it and it will look terrible.
Yeah.
That would bother me. Some people will bother too.
Yeah, you always want to try to keep the bills clean. The dings will come later. So if you can build this nice and clean, but you see how by us not creasing this, how it gave us
it gives us the full crease.
And at this point, this is where you're going to want to go into your small pack and get one of the barbecue skewers out of there. Now just simply take the tip here, don't puncture down through the paper. We're going to open up this groove just a little bit. Here, I'll let you get the rest of this side here. And that's just going to establish where this thing needs to go ahead and fold at. Take the stress off the paper.
Yeah, it's basically less work on you guys. Rather than trying to take all the folds at once, you're basically just breaking it down little by little.
You nailed it, man. All right, cool. And before we fold this over now, we're going to have these nice grooves. We got to give it the proper spacing, and that's what these pieces right here are going to be. Now you're going to have some little indication marks on your plan. They're going to be blue, or you're going to have etch marks on your laser cut. And you're going to want to basically glue these spacers in an orientation such as this. This is going to provide the spacing you need and also act as your main spar. Yep, just center it right up in that groove. Perfect.
Cool. All right.
put this down, I like to rock it back and forth a little bit, kind of spread that glue out.
You like making a mess.
Make a mess a little bit.
Wait, so go
There
right
you
here.
go. Yep, right in between those two lines.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's facing towards the trailing edge too. So
You got it.
got that there.
Reason being is the biggest cavity we're trying to preserve is the leading edge
For the
back
wires
into the
and all
spar.
that.
And this back here will actually bump up against this so this doesn't get over creased. Let's go ahead and just fold this over one more time, see how it feels now. And now we're going to know that most of our pressure is going to need to be over these spars right here. And you can see the wing is taking form really nicely. Now that we have that down, we're going to want to place a bead of glue on the leading edge, these two creases, and this is where having a big hot glue gun is definitely handy, and also on these spars. Ready? Go for
Here you go. You do it.
Alrighty.
I don't like to use too much hot glue. I would skip actually a lot of these steps.
It definitely will make a strong glue.
Yep, I like to build light.
Oh, you're playing splash so good. This is one part where a lot of the strength's going to come from the glue. And if you push your nose of your iron right down to that groove, you're not going to put on more than what you need. Thank you. We're using the AdTech Pro 200.
Yeah, plug for AdTech.
Nice plug for AdTech.
I actually like the gun. I actually really like it.
Yeah, I've yet to make it run out of glue.
I mentioned I dropped it.
Did you drop it?
Actually, I keep kicking the cord off the table.
Well, stop doing that.
I'm surprised the element hasn't broken inside of it, if it's ceramic or not.
All right, we're ready to fold this over here. Now, at this point, all we're concentrating on is making sure these three spar areas are pushed down nice and flat. And this is definitely where having a friend comes in handy, because your 2x4 trick would work, but to get this back angle, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So hands can never be replaced. So we're going to take our time here. We're going to let this thing dry nice and thoroughly. Once again, don't rush the step. You know, if it starts lifting up on one corner, what you're basically down into your wing is a warp or washout. And if it's uneven, it's going to definitely...
Yeah, you're pretty much ruined for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or at least without a lot of cosmetic surgery.
Yeah. So give it a good solid minute and a half or so. If you're building this with a kid, go ahead and chat away and talk about that. Take their mind off that they're holding the plane down while it's gluing together so they don't get anxious, right? All right, you feel that's good? We're good.
It's good.
All right. Our final step for the wing is we're going to go ahead and open this up just a little bit, and we're going to place a bead of glue right down the inside. And I'll let you do that. Just bury that tip right in there.
You want the ailerons too? Or under the ailerons?
Yep, push it right underneath that spot right there. There you go. Perfect.
Didn't burn you, did I?
Nope. I don't know if we should tell them the hot glue is hot.
In other words, water's wet and hot glue's hot.
There you go. All right, now we're just going to go ahead and hold this down. Now, if you've built the full-size cruiser before, you're going to notice that we actually increase the undercamber size on both the minis. That's a very common thing. You can't just go and say, I want to make the mini half the size and get the same flight characteristics. Every mini that we've designed, whether it's a mini Speedster, your cargo plane, or this one, has a different percentage that we've shrunk it. This one here is about 62. I think yours is 65%. And the goal is to actually maintain the flight characteristics.
Yeah, that's one thing we had trouble with. Because we actually did the cargo plane at what, like 50%er?
Yeah, we did as a 50%er.
It was fun to fly, but almost impossible for most people to handle. I mean, I would crash it sometimes too because the way it was so squirrely and tip-stally.
It was fun because it was a very hard advanced flying ship, and we crashed it a lot, and it took a beating. So we definitely knew the durability was there, but it was just lacking in that docile characteristics, and also the way your big one flew. We wanted to honor that and copy
I wanted to
that.
be able to do most of the stuff the big things would, and that little 50%er would not slow down.
Yeah.
It was like a rocket.
And the same thing goes with the cruiser. When we actually built the 50% size cruiser, there was just no way you could get the electronics in it. It was so tiny.
And if we did, I mean, we could fly it. It would fly actually probably pretty good, but it would not slow down, and you would only get one aspect of flight going really fast.
Yeah, and this one here, it flies just like the big one. All right, this one's all done. We now have a nice solid wing here that we can go ahead and lace this through. The last thing we're going to want to do before we move on is we're just simply going to cut this area out and open this up. Now this portion here is actually going to be for your servos. On the full-size cruiser, the servos are back by the tail. If we did that, well, first thing is we'd need very, very, very small servos, but also the excess tail weight would be a problem for us. The last step for this is we're going to go ahead and bevel our ailerons. This is exactly the same process as what we did on our leading edge, but we're also going to reinforce this hot glue just to make it a little bit more durable. So I'll let you go ahead and do that side there.
Over. Give me a knife.
There you go. Once again, nice sharp knives are nice. Hold it at a acute angle. And a sanding block always works well too. I use about 80 to 100 grit, 3 or 4 swipes back and forth. That's all you need.
That took a little too much there.
That's okay.
Oops.
If, God forbid, something like this does happen, it's too excessive, you just put a piece of tape over it. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, we can do it later.
And also with the hot glue hinge that we're going to be reinforcing, it's going to be plenty strong. Now, if this is the first time you've ever built one of these, to reinforce this, it's very simple. Just go ahead and lay a thin, tiny bead of glue right over where that paper is. Then use a scrap piece of foam board.
And rub it in.
Just go over it 2 or 3 times. Scrape all the excess glue off that you can.
You put all the hot glue in that open wound.
Yep. That's great. We'll do it on this side. And I'm going to leave these open, but when we pass it through the fuselage, we're obviously going to go ahead and reinforce and tape it down. Onto the fuselage. At this point, we don't want to go ahead and put our servos in, because if we do that, it won't be able to pass through the fuselage. Yeah, you're going to
cut a notch in your fuselage, actually.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and put this aside, and we're ready to work on our fuse.
Cool.
See how strong that is, by the way. Nope. So the fuselage is pretty darn simple. Once again, if you've built the cruiser before, this is going to be very comfortable for you. But before we start on the fuselage, might as well get our tail surfaces ready.
Yeah, let's go and do those.
Now, most of the time, you cut the beveled edge on the moving surface. So in this case, it would be the elevator or the fin. Or I'm sorry, the elevator or the rudder.
This is the vertical stabilizer. That's the rudder.
Exactly. But in this case, because we don't want to make this surface here any thinner, we're actually going to reverse it. We're going to cut our beveled surface on the bottom side on the actual stabilizer.
Nice. I actually don't see a lot of people do that too. That's one thing people somehow get ingrained on putting the bevel on the moving surface. I mean, you don't ever have to.
No, it's no rule. I like honestly, like the bevel cuts always facing down, but they're actually more durable when they face up, because say you dig a wingtip in
when you're bumping into something,
it's actually pulling and tightening this, where if you bump into something, it actually can.
It just way aesthetically pleasing. So I'm guilty of the same thing.
Yeah, it looks nicer this way than this way. But in this case, we're going to put our beveled edge right on the stabilizer, but this one's going to be on your rudder. There you go.
Cool.
I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that while you're doing that, okay?
Nice.
All right, now for the fuselage here, we're going to go ahead and remove some foam strategically. If you're doing the scratch build, this is going to be indicated with a red line, and you're going to know to do at least a 50% score cut. Now, this is a speed build kit, and it's cut actually a little bit more than that, but what I like to do to actually make things just peel off really easy is just drag this through very, very softly.
I definitely go light on that too, because first time I saw it, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I run the knife down there, and I was like,
you just cut it in half.
Yeah, I cut it in half.
Yeah.
Wasn't thinking.
You can actually, after doing this for a while, you can almost feel how deep it goes. You can actually feel to the paper and control it. Once again, keep your knife nice and acute. This isn't required. You can actually, I'll just show you here, you can actually go ahead and open this up like this. But the thing I like to drag this through is it makes it so clean.
And it comes out of one clean break, which is super nice.
Exactly. So you don't need to do it, but I always encourage people to do it, just to get the tightest fitting. It saves them having to go back with a knife and shave off all that excess.
And also when it comes to actually folding, you'll notice that now you have a clean edge, so the ends butt up. When you have little chunks of foam in there, it adds extra resistance when you're trying to fold the piece.
So if you're not going to do that and you're going to do this process where you're pulling it away like that.
Yeah, because you can see the little chunks of foam right there. So now it makes it a little harder on yourself.
Yeah, and if you do want to remove that, just simply take this straight down and then scrape it away, just like that. Now, to put this fuselage together, the most important thing I can stress, you gotta make it square. Everything needs to be very square, very true. And what you can do is you can take any of these components here, just take one of our 90-degree angles, and use that as a reference point. If you don't have an actual true
like angle, a tri-square or something, I mean, anything, just make sure it's 90.
But for this, we're gonna go ahead and test fit this. And we're going to make sure that these can actually fold up and go nice and 90, because it's kind of thin. When you're working with smaller airplanes now, the tolerances are a lot smaller, so it's easy to bend. So make sure that you can actually bend these up to true 90 degrees. And this is going to be a B-fold. And if you don't know what a B-fold is, the side cheeks of the fuselage are going to be besides the bottom plate. And if you have any questions about that, all you simply need to do is look at the diagram and match that diagram as an end view. So you can see the side cheeks are beside the bottom plate. A wonderful gentleman at Flight Fest actually told me about that.
I haven't forgotten it either.
I feel bad. I gotta remember his name or find out his name, because it's helped me so much in remembering how to explain it. Now for these guys here, this is where your blue lines are on the plans. This is going to be where we want to crease. We actually have these as etch marks, so they crease very nicely. But that way everything comes in. You don't want to try to force things in after the fact. And one thing I even like to do is I can actually, just a little tip, you can actually make this like a little score cut. So it flips down, and then we can cut that afterwards. Okay? So, we got some glue.
Cool. Got hot glue.
Now for a B-fold, go ahead and put the glue on majority on the side of the bottom plate. Right there, you got it. We're going to do this one step at a time. You don't want to hurry this part, because if you have this crooked, your wing's passing through this. And also your
whole plane's going to turn out a little crooked.
Yeah.
It'll probably still fly fine, but
it'll just look fine.
Yeah, it'll be, for the OCD crowd, it'll drive you nuts.
And we'll be able to show you afterwards too. If say something is a little bit out of sorts, we can show you how to adjust it so no one will ever tell. So we got our 90. We're going to do the exact same process on the other side. Now in this kit we actually included optional flaps. In the video that you saw, if you saw the review, these optional flaps push in. We had them as split flaps that were optional for the big cruiser that would actually retract and function. But say you wanted to fly in an area that was a little bit tighter.
Smaller, and you didn't care about axial rolls and all that.
Exactly.
I don't even care about that. I just want to fly.
It was just for cruising around doing lazy circles and stuff like that, but it's amazing how much slower it got. It was incredible. All right, that looks good. Now we're going to go ahead and put our attention to the back plate. This is loose here. I'm just going to go ahead and pop these out now. We don't need to worry about them. I always like to try to keep some of these pieces in place as long as possible because it keeps the crush down. Now this is why I just put that little score cut. We can actually open that up. Now we can go ahead and put our glue on both sides.
I didn't pick up on what you were talking about when you made the score cut. I was like, it's already folded, Josh.
You don't need to do this, but I kind of like opening this up just a little bit. All right, so for this we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold this down. Our last step on the fuselage here is to go ahead and finish off the top. Once again, this is a B-fold. The side cheeks are going to go besides the top plate. So basically A and B always is talking about its orientation to the top or the bottom plate. And if there's anything unique, especially like with your cargo plane, we actually have diagrams etched right into there and on the plan, so you can look at that from a side cut view and kind of have it make sense. Always fold it together. If there's slop or there's a gap that's the width of the foam, you know you've actually installed it in the wrong order. All right, let's put some glue down. I always make a comment, use the table as your friend. That's because the table is a nice, hard, flat surface. And when you try to put things together in the air, it's not hard, nice and hard and flat. So that's where you have the most opportunity to put a twist there.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. So in this case, we can simply just close this like we're closing a door. Let's just open this up just a little bit.
I think he just needs some help on that door.
We'll lay this nice and flat. Once again, going back, making sure everything is 90 degrees. You know, a lot of people always talk about how overweight foam is, and this stuff is undoubtedly very heavy. You know what I mean, compared to a lot of the world.
I want to die, Josh. It's like 19 grams.
It's
What's
19.
wrong with you?
This is 19 grams of weight so far for the whole entire fuselage. It's not that bad, is it? Grab that wing real quick.
It's a little terrible, but not that bad. I don't know, for the price of these materials, it's not too bad.
So what is that, 59 grams?
Yeah.
Now you saw the amount of hot glue I put into this thing.
That's a lot.
That's still a remarkably light airframe for what we're coming up with. But do keep in mind, as Peter talked about dressing up your wires, as you get more and more advanced in this, if you can cut out a half an ounce, 1 ounce worth of wire and neaten up everything, you're only going to make the performance of the plane even better.
And plus when it crashes lighter.
Yeah.
Because the less weight there is, the less destruction there is inside of your airplane.
Exactly. Now for this model here, we're going to build it as dirty and as heavy as we possibly can just to demonstrate the characteristics.
Yep. Worst case scenario, basically.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to have that issue.
Yeah. The optimum servo size is 5 grams. That's the ones we like the most. They're fairly durable for their size, but we did size everything, and with our designs we want to make them compatible with 9 grams if at all possible, and that's why you're going to notice the holes are a little bit bigger. But just keep in mind, if you build this with 4 9-gram servos, your flight experience is going to probably be a little bit heavier than if you have 5 grams.
Yeah, and it's also not 9 grams is the servo weight. You have to take the extension from the wire and all that. That's actually additional weight.
It's about 12 grams in total, so
let's check that out.
So 10 grams.
That's actually lighter.
Well, there you go. Cool. That's not bad. But keep in mind, if you had 5-gram servos, it would be even lighter. And there is a noticeable difference. This plane is predominantly for backyards, cruising around. We want it to be economical and as approachable as possible. 9 grams are common, so we designed it to receive it. But if you want the best performance, go with 5.
Yep, 5.
So our next step is going to be to add the tail surfaces and stuff. Now this is where, before you go ahead and put this on, because we did the hinges,
let's go ahead and refold them.
Yeah, go ahead and make sure that they still have freedom of movement. If you have any issues, say where you put the hot glue and they're bound, go ahead and remove that now. And that can be as simply as just heating it up a little bit and taking away that extra.
Yeah, you can just stick the nozzle right in there and wipe it off and then re-smear it down.
Yeah, but this feels really good.
So this is not bad at all.
Perfect. Now to install these two, before we slide into the fuselage, we're actually going to open this up 90 degrees. Slip this down together. And then close the door on the bottom. Do you have a little piece of tape by any chance?
Yeah.
Awesome. One of the hardest things with this kind of design was getting the actual everything to key up properly. Easy way to fix that is just like what you said, closing the door. But before we wrap it around, pinch this together sharp. And wrap it around here. Just cut that off. What that's going to do is it's going to give us a nice tapered edge to pass right through this back heel. And speaking of back heel, go ahead and show them how to open that up here.
Right, I'm going to knock those things out.
Yep. We went ahead and left those in. That way it's more strong. It has more strength when you're folding everything together. It doesn't crinkle in that area. But now's the time to remove it. All right, at this point, We're going to go ahead and slide this on through. Actually, we'll just pinch on the nose just a little bit. Just like that. Now, the hinge point is going to line up with the very back of the elevator, and the rudder is going to stay right over the hinge point. And because these are keyed together, it actually is very easy to keep everything nice and square and true.
Nice.
Now we're going to do something a little bit differently though. We're obviously going to sight, and that actually looks very, very close to being on here. But we're not going to glue the elevator in quite yet. We're going to actually put the wing on here and check out the wing and dial the elevator into that. But the rudder is obviously keyed on the top and the bottom.
That can't go anywhere.
Exactly. So go ahead and just lay a really, really tight bleed. Tight bleed.
You said like bleed like 2 times already.
What is in my mind? Here, I'll
the Mountain Dew?
Yeah.
Obviously.
There you go.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, scrape as much as you can off of this because we're going to have doublers going back there.
And everything you put back here, try to take it off because this is all behind the CG, so it's always working against you.
Yeah. If you're going to ever put weight, and that's also why we moved the servos up in this area. At this point, we got 2 different bulkheads. We'll go ahead and glue one on the back here, and you can glue one on the front.
Right.
It's pretty hard. It's kind of self-explanatory. If one hangs over or isn't big enough, it's on the wrong side. All right, do you remember those 2 doublers? Oh, there they are, right here.
Okay.
And in the spirit of what you're talking about, I'm actually pulling the paper off of them.
Cool. Which side? Both?
Both. Yep.
What are these again? I forgot.
These are doublers for the turtle deck. Now, if you built a big cruiser, all this is you should be able to do with your eyes closed. But you'll see a 90-degree bevel, and then this one here is just a little bit acute. We're going to go ahead and put it with the 90-degree. It's not going to be a huge difference if you get it. You don't really need to go crazy on the strength to get it down. And we're just going to glue this right in here. Force it down. This is what your poster board's going to be sticking to. That's the only function it has, is to give you a doubler. Go for it, man.
Okay, so yeah, you see like the 90-degree face there. This side's 90 degrees, and that would go that way.
You got it.
Cool. I've never built your cruiser, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Very nice, man. Now's the time for poster board. Now, if you guys are cutting this out by scratch here, we go ahead and when we laser cut it, we align the grain, but the poster board does have a grain.
That's weird too. It's kind of like foam. Even some foams have grains in them.
Exactly. And wood has grain too. And in this case,
of course, wood has grain.
Well, this does have grain in it. The grain's going to be going this way, so we're going to bend it this way. So when you cut this out by scratch, bend your paper first and find out. What this will keep you from doing is if you have a real sharp bend, from getting little wrinkle lines, in your actual foam board. So if you get it too sharp, it'll do that. So this is good. We're going to actually lay this right over top here. We're just going to give this a test fit here to make sure that we're happy with where it goes. Yeah, it looks really good. Now, before we try jumping too deep too quickly, we're simply going to mark out where we want it to go. And this is going to line up right with our hinge line in the back. And we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to push down just a little bit here. Smooth this area out. Just to kind of bring the spirit of being a nice, happy, round area. And once again, this is all common if you've done the other plane before. You can even actually take the razor blade. Just smooth that out a little bit. It's all aesthetic. And we're going to go ahead and put a bead of glue on both sides here. Now this is where you don't want to get antsy and don't want to hurry up the process. You want to take it nice, sweet time with it. Because what I'm going to do...
I have trouble with this still. I get too impatient.
We all do. We all want to test it. We always want to touch the wet paint. You notice that? Is it dry? Is it not dry? This one, trust me, you just gotta walk away.
Walk away and I will spare your life.
There we go. Now what you see what we're doing here? We're actually gluing this to the surface here. And we're gonna let it dry like this. Because afterwards we're gonna bend it down. But we want this area to be nice and solid. And I don't want to put too much weight back here with glue reinforcing and getting all globby. If you let this dry nice and thoroughly and you don't touch it, it's gonna look beautiful. Now Peter, go ahead and give me just a little drop right on the top there.
Just a little dot?
Perfect.
It's a big dot.
We're going to let this dry. While this is drying, I'm just going to go ahead and take a ribbon of hot glue. And let's go ahead and fold this in, make this as narrow. This is where the miniguns actually do come in handy a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and push this nozzle hardcore 90 degrees right against the foam board. And I'm going to lay a real thin ribbon just above that seam here. Now, if you built the Scout or the Speedster, this is a very common technique.
Even the full-size ones too, right?
Yeah, all the full-size ones. But what we did in the past was we used a lot of tape. I'm trying to get away from using tape because it's just a cleaner build, and also when you do things like airbrushing, you don't have those texture changes.
Oh yeah, and plus you try to mask it, you'll peel anything off of the tape.
Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and lay a real thin bead of glue here, and this is where, once again, we're going to use the table as a friend. I'm going to have to do this somewhat quickly. But you can see I didn't go crazy putting glue on the formers. I'm simply going to go right here. The table is my friend, and I'm going to hold this down until it thoroughly dries. Now, literally, if you need an egg timer or something, give this at least a couple minutes of waiting here. I know it sounds like a long time, but if you have to go back and fix this, it's going to take 3 times the time.
And it'll look very, very ugly and wait.
All right, there we go. You can see by using the table as your friend, you got a really nice tight seam, and that's why we let that area back there dry. See how nice and clean that looks?
I hate you, Josh.
I
can't do that.
You can do it. You want to do this side?
No.
You sure?
You can do it.
Oh,
I'll screw up off camera.
No, you won't screw up off camera.
Yes, I will.
I'm just going to take this, and you can see it kind of drag this over. That way it's nice and tight up against here. And I'm putting all my pressure. I'm not putting it in the center of the fuselage where I can ding it.
Yep.
I'm actually
just distributing it along the edge of where the
top fold
paper is.
It is amazing how strong this foam board is, especially when you get to these minis. We originally didn't intend to call it the Mighty Minis, but after we built them and realized how strong they were.
Yeah, flew them into trees and
poles,
people, cars.
We don't talk about the people.
We do.
They're still alive. But it's amazing how much damage these can do, and that's one thing we really want to keep on the theme of all the Mighty Minis. We want these to be incredibly durable, so you can really go crazy and cut your teeth on the flight.
Yeah, that's why I prefer to teach people in small airplanes.
Yeah,
small airplanes don't crash as hard.
Yeah, and this is definitely a contrast to like the micros, like the Horizons, because the wings are so thin on those. You know, you can tape them back together, but this. But
yeah, once you do that, you change the characteristics so much in the little guys. Because I mean, they're really, really good flyers out of the box, but as soon as you damage them, you're kind of done.
Yeah, and we want it to be cheap. All right, there's the other side.
Cheap.
Peter, you could have done that. Now people are going to be mad because you didn't do it.
Whatever.
Let's do it. Okay.
Let them complain.
Let's go ahead and move on to the front. What do you say here? We're at this point. We could slide the wing in, but let's go ahead and just complete the full nose assembly.
Yep.
And that way we can put it all together. Do you want to open that up for me? Knife. Here you go. And while he's opening that cavity, I'm going to go ahead and just remove the excess foam from here. And this is going to be for our bottom of our nose plate. At this point, Peter has this opened up here. Go ahead and just glue these as a B-fold, just like we normally would. In the case you're going to put your glue on this sheet. Use the table as your friend and push on down. I went ahead and removed this outer surface. This is going to be the bottom plate of the fuselage. We're going to go ahead and just simply peel this paper off. And if you built the F-22 before, or a lot of other airplanes, this is going to be very familiar to you as well. Once you peel this paper off, this is very easy to mold with your fingers. And we're just simply going to rock this back, and we're going to match the angle of the front of the nose here. Just like that. You can do a little bit of bending, but the better you get this to fit ahead of time, the easier life is going to be. And you're going to see that this is just going to fold right up in here. Once we're happy with that fit... Oops, sorry, Peter.
I shall move.
This is kind of technically a B-fold, but I'm going to go ahead and place it in on all 3 sides. Just slide it into place. Now I'll use the table as my friend again. Now this is thoroughly dried. We're just simply going to go back here. There we are. We're just going to kind of bevel this a little bit. You can sand it, just so that this goes down nice and smooth. All right, let's see how she fits. There we are, nice and tight.
Cool.
Looks good. All right. At this point, we can go ahead and work on our poster board. It's right over there. It's the rectangle. Now on the big cruiser, we had actually an additional mod that you could put a FPV pod on there. But your little micro FPV pods kind of make that not really needed.
Yeah, you just tape it to the tape right to the nose or put a little hole in it.
You can put a little hole in there and drop that in there. If you guys aren't familiar with what we're talking about, we can probably put a link down below to his little micro FPV build. Also, there's a lot of really, like Horizon has a really good little micro FPV.
Oh yeah, there's really nice.
Yeah. The thing we love about twin engine planes is the twin engines give you an unobstructed view. And we really love flying for FPV.
And also this is going to go fast, so you can cover quite a bit of distance with this little plane.
And it's efficient too. It's remarkably efficient. So the first portion I'm going to go ahead and glue down is the solid foam board part. I'm going to actually line this up exactly with the back, split the difference right in the middle, My dad used to say, take my half out of the middle.
You can back bolt with that too.
Yep.
Yep, that's
I'm
pretty
gonna
much spot
hold this
on.
down. We're gonna hold this down, let it dry. Funny thing about the paper is it dries really quick. I don't know if it's because of the thermal properties or what, but it does.
It's not foam.
Not foam. Okay. So at this point, you want to give me 2 beads?
Yep.
Now this plane is designed predominantly to fly off of anywhere from a 500 2 to 3 cell all the way up to a 800 2 to 3 cell. So it's up to you on the power plants that you want. But keep in mind that you may actually have to remove some of this area here if you have a wider battery. You can carry the weight. And if you see here, what I'm doing is I'm actually just spacing this, rocking this up against the table. And I'm actually making sure, because this can go in and out, that this stays parallel and true to where it's supposed to go. So in other words, I'm keeping the distance the same all the way through. We don't have any Scotch tape, do we? So what I'm doing here is I'm taking this tape, I'm going to fold a little tiny tab. Now it looks like a Verizon product, huh? Remember the little pull tabs?
Oh yeah.
I got to cut a little bit thinner here. And what I want to do is when we remove this hatch, I don't want to be pulling on the poster board. So I'm simply going to open this and tape it right here. So that way when it closes, we have a little pull tab.
Cool. Very nice.
Alright, at this point we're just going to move this all the way to the edge, tight up against this area. We're going to fold this over. And this is a portion we're going to tape, but we want to put our wings or servos or gear in. We're not going to bother doing that until it's time. Alright, so now comes the fun stuff, right?
The wing.
The wing time. Alright, this is where we definitely can take... I'm just going to take away some of the stickum on this here. There we are. Cool. Now with the wing here, we're going to be passing this through. Now if you go ahead and just kind of try to manhandle this through, it's going to dent up the foam. So you want to take your time. First thing to do, just take your thumb, don't give yourself a paper cut, and soften this edge right here. Make it so it doesn't want to snag. This hole is actually just a little bit smaller than what it needs to be.
Friction fit.
You got it. And with the plane resting, just as you see here, we're going to actually start rocking this through. I'm going to turn this a little bit of an angle, open this up, and you can see I'm almost using like a saw cutting pattern. Now I'm going to go ahead and work that wing perpendicular. And keep in mind now my aileron's coming up. Just real smooth little rocking motions. If you have to force it really aggressively, what you're doing is you're bending something or crinkling something. Look at that.
Fits like a glove on foot.
Looks good. All right, so now at this point our wing is in. We're gonna go ahead and we can just take our little gauge, make sure it's sitting pretty 90 degrees, and then the seam right down in the middle here is simply gonna be lined up. Now as we talked about before, we didn't glue our stabilizer, and that was because, wow, that is really close. Say the wing was slightly crooked, say this fuselage didn't go together exactly how you wanted, this tail would be twisted, or this wing would be twisted. It's far easier to move the tail to go parallel with the wing than vice versa. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and look at where the wing is, sign it up with the fuselage, and what we want is both of them to be parallel.
Actually, one thing you need to do this. Can I see the ruler? Basically, I take 1 point on the tail, make that your 0 mark.
Okay.
Like, let's say there, and we'll pick 1 point out here.
How about that little groove there?
The little groove, that's 21 right there.
And now you're actually going in the very center of the tail, aren't you?
Yep, very center. As close as possible.
Yep.
This works really well with big models because you know that big cargo plane I made that's like 14 feet long? I had to do this and it was only half an inch off. And only I know that, and now everyone knows that.
So we got a true perpendicular wing now to the actual fuselage.
And now since the tail, the horizontal stabilizer is still a variable, so you know that shifts.
So now we can basically just rock this. Now say you did have to twist this. All you need to do, because the foam crushes pretty easy, is simply just kind of pinch down on one side or the other. Don't bend your tail and weaken it that way, but just simply go ahead and bend it. And then once you get that level, put some hot glue and then just hold it at that angle until it's thoroughly dry, and it'll be as strong as a rock.
Cool.
In this case, it's spot on. So we're just going to tack it here. And because these planes are so light and small, all you simply need to do is put a bead in the angle. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I can pull that down.
There you go.
And a little more.
Perfect. I'm going to lick my finger and smooth it out. Hey, hot glue's hot.
Let's go
ahead and get this side here.
I would do that one.
Dissipate it.
Yep, that's all I do. I just rub them together. Don't get burned.
Now you're rubbing all the
Yeah, the heat. I rather than pulling
all our
one
hot glue
spot.
tips now. All right, that looks still good. Let's go ahead and put a hot bead right down in the wing. Nice. There we are. And we're going to go ahead and let that dry. After this is thoroughly dried, we can go ahead and follow up on the very top. A lot of the times, I often don't even put glue on the very top just because it kind of gets ugly there.
Yeah.
And it looks really nice and neat. And also, if you get a hard enough hit, that bottom seam will break.
Yeah.
The top will stay intact.
So you can just hide the ugly in the bottom.
You got it. You got it. So now what are we on to?
Onto the power pods.
Onto the power pods. How about you do one, I do the other?
Cool.
All right, once again, we have a B fold. I think the only thing that's in this whole plane, it seems like, that's an A fold is the power pod. You can see Peter's going ahead and score cutting. I'm just showing how you can kind of carefully work it out. Something slightly different with this model here, because we have this little area in the front here. And what I didn't want to have is a nice raw edge here that's pointing towards the prop that can eventually peel. So I'm just going to go ahead and crack this and pull that, leaving this paper below here. While Peter's cutting that out, I'll take a little bit of hot glue. I'll also put a little one on top here too. I'm just going to fold this over. The reason I'm actually using this foam board is because if you put your finger up against that, it's going to be very hot. So I'm just going to wrap that around, smear out the excess. What this gives us now is a nice clean edge when you're looking at the front. All right, so we have our area cleaned out.
Yep.
We're ready for our B-folds, aren't we?
Totally.
Now this one's a little bit different because we have these tabs here and we want to protect these. So what I like to do is just kind of force them through. They don't have to be
Yeah,
perfect.
you can protect them by forcing them through. Sure, Josh.
Well, when we hold this, we're going to want to hold this off the table
Yep.
and then switch sides. Just like that. So put your glue down and just keep in mind if you try to force it this way, you're going to have an awkward
You're
seam
going to
there.
have a bad time.
So now we're not going to want to glue these on here because our servos have to go in first.
Yep.
And part of this covers part of the servo. So we'll put these to the side. All right, at this point we're ready to go ahead and install our servos. Why don't we go ahead and start with probably what would be one of the most inconvenient things, unless that's the wings.
Yep.
All right, so for that we're going to go ahead and pop out these two panels. Once again, it's a little bit oversized because we want it to be able to receive 9-gram servos. Now before we talked about the servo centering and the linkage stoppers, we talked about putting the linkage stoppers out about a ½ an inch or 1 centimeter from the very edge. And that was for the aileron servos. So we're going to go ahead and take those now. Here you go, Peter. We're going to take the ones that have the farther span, which is these guys right
Cool.
here.
Yep.
And as far as the angle here,
Do you want them out or in?
yeah, I'm going to want this as close as
okay.
possible to this guy right here. So we're going to go ahead and open up this other panel as well too. Now keep in mind, as I put a little too much glue, they may stick a little bit,
Yeah.
and we had to cut that out. We're going to go ahead and pass this on through.
That's a little pocket. That makes it so much
It makes
easier.
it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. Such a thin wings. They're not hard to fish all that stuff through there.
And the funny thing about these thin wings is the actual 9 gram is a little bit fatter than the wing itself. That's why I kind of put underneath a little bit of the pod.
Work a little notch.
You got it. So you can see there, I just went ahead and perfect. I just made 2 little indents where the wings are, where the flanges are on the servo. And we're just going to notch that out. Nice. There we are.
That servo's fatter than your wing.
Exactly. Now we can actually pass this through. And you're right, it does make life a lot easier just pulling things like that through there. Okay, now the wing's already centered and everything, so we can just put a little drop of hot glue there. Doesn't hurt if you want to.
You mean the servo's already centered?
Yep, sure.
Not wings.
Yeah. We did that a couple steps ago. There we are. We're going to repeat the exact same process on the other side. Now on the micros, I'd like to do without linkage stoppers, but in this kind of build, it's almost really nice.
Yeah, it's either or. I mean, if you want to take some extra time, you can just do the Z-bends. I prefer to do Z-bends all the time.
Yeah, it saves a little bit of weight and a little muss.
Yep.
So now we have our servos routed on through here. Next step would probably be the easiest while we're working on the wing is to route our power harness, huh?
Yep, let's
power
do
harness?
that. Power harness. Wire, power, whatever, something.
Here we
got the other one.
You got it?
Yep, you got one over there.
Where's the Y harness?
Oh, the Y harness. It's over here. There you go.
Perfect. All right, so the Y harness, pretty darn simple. We're just going to go in reverse, aren't we?
Yep.
Thanks for starting this up, by the way.
No problem.
And we have a build video on the Y harness, how to do it. We're also hoping to have it in the stores very soon. So actually, if you're watching this about 2 months from now,
They're actually, the JST parallel ESC output harness will be in there.
there we go. We'll pull that on through. Should put this on the other cruiser, huh? There we go.
Cool. All right.
Let me grab that.
Cool. Get that.
I'll clean up our area. What do you say?
It's only fair, right? It's your plane.
Nice. Perfect, man. That's a really good length for it.
Yeah, just came out just about right for that.
Yeah, very nice. Now would be a really good time to put our nacelles on. And to do that, we're going to want to go ahead and remove these little alignment tab areas here. Make sure that's out of there. Perfect. Okay, first one.
Yep.
Other side.
There we go.
Now you can see here we got 2 alignment tabs. It can really only go on one direction.
I mean, you could put them on the other way, but you won't have any room for propellers.
It just won't make sense. And you can see this little tiny weird notch. The reason that's in there is to allow for the thickness of a 9-gram servo. If you're working with 5-gram servos, obviously that won't be a big deal, but it won't look bad either.
Yep.
Okay. So now for this here, we can go ahead and put our glue on either surface. I'm going to go ahead and favor this one here. I'm going to go ahead and put one on the trail edge. And I'm just going to go ahead, back and forth a couple times, right up on this edge here. And just press it down. Whole point of those alignment dowels is simply just to make sure that your prods.
Yep, this is 90 degrees, yeah.
If it's off just a little bit, you're going to have a rudder issue, won't you? We're going to repeat the exact same process on the other side. I guess now would be a really good time for our power pods, wouldn't it?
Let's go stick those things in there.
So for this one here, if you have counter rotating, which we actually dial both these in to be conventional here, you don't need to make counter rotation. If getting small props and our counter rotating for the multi-rotors are a problem, just go with conventional. And both these are conventional, so we can show you that they both work. And we are doing differential thrust, aren't we?
Yes.
Super. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to route this guy through here. Once again, using our little access panels as our friends. All right, so while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and make our JST connection here. The one thing I noticed and stuff with JST, always make sure the red and black and black. I've seen other manufacturers screw up the orientation.
I don't know why. Yeah, Hobby Kings did it. I got some off of eBay like that.
I mean, so yeah, be very careful.
All right, now one important thing is here, we've ordered some stuff in the past where the polarities are backward.
Yeah.
And this actually, sadly, is the exact same. We just want to connect it, and this is backwards. In other words, you said one should always be ground?
Yeah, one is always common with these. I don't know what's the industry standard or why the practice is they're backwards, but we had to turn this JST around and just force it into the opposite way. Yeah, and you can actually do that. It's key to only go in one way, but just get it. You can still go.
Not right, but we'll definitely make sure. You can see one here is ground.
And that's normal too, because if you look at this battery, it's exactly the way it should be.
Yep.
And that would go in.
This is backwards. So just keep that in mind if you guys ever order some connectors. And
always double check.
Doesn't matter, whatever manufacturer, always check that because it's
especially JST.
Best way to screw up a connection. All right, so one thing that's different about the mini cruiser as compared to the big cruisers, we left this back area open here. The reason being is we're gonna actually, when we put this pod in, every motor, I should say, that's mini, we love the 250 size race quad motors. Everyone's going to be just slightly different, and everyone's going to have a slightly different prop spacing. So you're going to want to move your pod back and forth to allow for that. And we didn't want to have it where your prop was way far forward. So
I really like how you did it too, so it wasn't fixed to one specific motor.
Well, normally we put barbecue skewers through them. In this case, we're actually, can you get me some of your super duper stuff? Yep. We're just gonna wrap one layer of tape around there.
Yeah.
Nice thing about that, especially with the twins, say you do have a really hard hit, that impact there, it's gonna be very difficult first of all, but if you do have a hard impact, it's gonna be somewhat protected, and all the shear load is gonna be distributed.
Yeah. I still like the I still actually like the barbecue skewers too.
Yeah, and you can still do that too.
But yeah, this is definitely good. If you're for sure done inside there, this is a good way to do it.
Just sit there.
It looks cleaner.
And now what we can do is we can actually put this right here, and it's now going to be able to vent really easy. You can just give me a drop of glue real quick. And it's still close enough to CG, it's not going to throw you off too badly. If you need to service it, just cut the 2 pieces of tape, put another piece of tape when you're done. Alright, we're going to repeat the exact same process on the other side. Alright, now we're on to the, we can actually seal these up now with tape, can't we?
Yeah, the other side.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend gluing these in because if you do have to do any servicing or you want to take out your gear without destroying your model,
You
simply
can
do
take
that.
the knife and just run it around the corner.
You got it. So we're just going to go ahead and pass the servo right down through the wing. Does it feel like you actually put more times putting your servos and your electronics in?
Yeah,
than
well, I
building the
mean,
whole
now I
airframe?
feel like, oh, this is dragging on. The airframe went to get her so quick.
Alright. Now this space is designed for 5 gram. You can see how that's a little bit on the tight side. You have to just open it up a little bit. Ultimately with your servos you want them to be somewhat tight.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. There we are. Now these are so tight, but we're still going to put a little drop of glue on them.
Yep.
Go for it.
Get some glue.
Perfect. Alright, so with our push rods, these 2 lengths of wire is going to give us everything we need for the whole entire airplane. But first we're going to start with the back of the tail here. I do like keeping things as simple as possible, and since we have the linkage stoppers on the front, we're going to want to pre-install our control horns. Now, say you have the control horns installed, you jumped ahead of the step, all you need to do is simply turn this 90 degrees, and you now have a modified Z-bend. So if you ordered the kit, the control horns are actually along with our firewalls that we previously used in the power pods. So let's pop these off here. So for our control horns, we're going to want to go ahead and we're going to use this wire, and what we cut off is going to actually become our aileron push rods.
Yep.
So we're simply going to guide this through and make sure that the push rod goes on the top portion of the wing, as you see right here. Now this is the point where it's nice to actually just go ahead and just guide this on through the linkage stopper as it sits. We're going to go ahead and pass that through, and we're going to get our control horn where it needs to go. And you can see we're actually crossing, aren't we? The reason I like that is because I like it doesn't bend the rod.
Do you want the rod this way or that way? Which
I like it forcing like out, just like you have it there.
Cool.
Good. Easiest thing to do with this is just support it from the bottom and just press down into the tab.
Get some glue.
Get a little drop of hot glue. We're gonna reach on the bottom and smear it. We're gonna let it dry. We're going to repeat the exact same process for the rudder now. I'm going to show you how to do a modified Z-bend. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this in ahead of time. Whenever you put your control horns on, there you go, Peter. Whenever you put your control horns on, it's always important to make sure that the hole lines up with the hinge line. You can put them on both ways, but if the hole is pointing far away from the rudder, you're not going to get the proper throws. It's going to be very different for you. So in this case, we have it on. Uh-oh, what do we do? Do you have some pliers?
Pliers, yeah.
Right there.
Get some
Obviously,
pliers.
we can't get the Z-bend and still get it in its pocket, but what we can do, we can take this, we can grab this right here, we can simply turn it 90 degrees. So you can see now, we got a modified Z-bend. Same process, pass it through. And now we simply just turn this in. This is a really good trick for like when you talk about not using linkage stoppers, but you want to change your control throws. This is a great trick. Only thing is you want to make sure that the torsion is always making this turn this way, not that way.
Yeah,
like this.
otherwise it will come unbuckled.
Got it. At this point, we can lock this down, can't we? So I'm just going to hold this nice and level. The easiest way also to do it is you can actually pinch this, just like that.
If I can pinch that.
Thank you. And then we're going to do the same with the rudder. I want to thank a wonderful gentleman in our community. He knew that I was always taking Chad Capper's wire cutters. He gave me my own, but a little bit heavier duty. As Peter says, never let do
Try twice.
safety glasses, right?
Yeah, and you can shoot this in my face.
There we go.
Cool.
Perfect. So these guys are nice and centered up. Next process is to do the ailerons. So for this, because we have the blank wire, we're going to go ahead and need to provide our own Z-bends. And the easiest way to do the Z-bend, I actually like to do, is actually create some modified Z-bend. I'm going to fold it once here. Then I'm going to grab the whole entire area. See, grab the runs here, bend it here. And I'm going to grab this whole entire surface right here and only go down about the thickness of your plywood, which is about a 1/16 of an inch, 32nd, and then fold it 90 degrees. Now this way, if you wanted to make a conventional Z-bend, you just turn that 90 degrees and you're done. But a lot of people, if they have really tiny needle nose, they open up and twist.
Yeah, if you have cheap needle nose, that's what happens. I really recommend high quality needle nose though.
And then you could do that.
And this
couldn't
thing's
you?
cheap too, and this is not needle nose. That's why it would work really well for the modified Z-bend.
Exactly. So the modified Z-bends will be what we do.
They're easier to do, so yeah.
Now we can have adjustment. I want to go ahead and put in our control horns. Once again, making sure that the hole goes right over the hinge line. Now on the mini control horns, we made sure that we only put one hole there, and we have our throws being adjusted. Yeah, just a little drop would be great. Thank you. And our throws can be adjusted by the servo. 16-degree deflection is kind of our happy area. If we ever do an FT3D or something that's mini, it's going to be very difficult to get that kind of performance out of a mini. We'll make sure that we have something unique for throws. But in this case, it's nice. It takes the guesswork out.
Yep, definitely.
All right, we're just going to pass this through.
You done screw it? Open it up.
Good stoppers. They're frustrating and wonderful. There we go. Thank you. Now we can simply pass this on through. And you can see I'm holding it in place. I'll just take this little piece of foam here. Perfect. Tighten her down. Go ahead and give a little bit more rotation on that. Actually, does that feel good?
Yeah. Put the tension on, so.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. And then we'll cut off the excess. Make sure you cut this somewhat short because if, say, you catch that, you don't want to get a piece of wire here somehow.
Yep.
Perfect. We'll repeat the exact same process on the other side. I believe it was Kevin Teschner. Thank you so much for the pliers. We use them all the time.
If you can find them.
If you can find them, yeah. At this point, we got all our servos hooked up. Everything's been centered.
All done.
We're ready to start making some connections here before we build our landing gear and put our nose on. To do that now, we're going to go ahead and trace this back. Once again, our rods kind of, they crossed each other. So we know that this here is our rudder.
Yep.
And we're going to go ahead and make our connections. Now, we have a video all about how to dial in differential. Every radio is a little bit different. Whether you have a DX6, which is somewhat difficult, or an 8-channel, you need about 3 mixes, don't you?
Yeah. You can even buy VTEL mixers and do it externally too.
Oh, can you?
There's methods for that too. Maybe we can make that a topic for our video.
Yeah. Problem with the VTELs, if I remember correctly, is it's just it limits your throws, right?
It depends. It's certain ESCs that have functions. Most of the Simon Ks will ignore it though.
Good to know. Okay, the ground's here. I'm in rudder. I'm now in rudder. There we go. And then this here is our elevator, right?
Yep, that should be elevator. It's going that way.
Perfect. Ailerons.
Either round. Do you want a wire harness? We're gonna need a wire harness.
Got a wire harness right here. This is where it's going to get a little busy. So if you had enough channels, you could actually plug these into separate channels and just do a dual radio mix. Do we have that luxury on this one?
We have 6 channels to work with, so technically we have 1 spare slot, but I think it's on. It's
on the
either
mix, right?
high or low. There's no middle though, so we can't use it.
So we'll go ahead and just do a Y harness. It's a big Y harness. We should get a smaller one, huh?
Yeah, we get some micro harnesses eventually.
Now what we can do though, because of this hatch, we can actually dress. It is a little bit of weight back here, but it's okay. We can actually dress some of these wires and let them loop here so the excess is nicely dressed.
Big and balled up.
You got it. So let's see, aileron is right here. And then throttle. You have this already dialed in for a mix. Which ones do our throttle go in? Which ones does our throttle go into?
You're having the radio? So it'll be aux 1 and throttle. Just take your pick, yep.
Alrighty.
Yeah, because once you figure out which one goes where, we just simply switch the 2 wires if the difference is going the wrong direction.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, is aux 1 gear?
aux 1 is not gear.
Okay, it's the one beyond.
aux 1 is on the Spectrum stuff is channel 6.
Channel 6.
Gear is channel 5.
Good to know.
That's why we can't use gear for the differential, because it's either high or low. Even if you turn that off, it won't stay in the middle.
And I'm apprehensive even about sharing them with them how we did ours, because if you have the wrong button flipped, the motors go live.
Yep.
So it's better just to watch the video and watch how you do a proper programmable mix.
Yep. And every radio is different too, so definitely consult your manuals, because it's really hard to cover all the topics versus like a Spectrum or Aurora 9, Futaba, and all the other general brands.
One thing I strongly recommend though is if you do have that, and it is like where Spectrum is, where you can share the file with a DX8, by all means do that. Make an article about it on our forum site. We'll pump it to the top so people can see how to do that.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna actually pass this down through that same cavity that we had right here. There we are. Now at this point, we got a lot of wires, don't we?
Oh yeah, that's a mess of wires.
It is a mess. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna dress these back to the back end of it here. We're just going to push these behind the servo and let them have a nice storage place. So just take your time and dress up the wires. So at this point, I think it'd probably be a good idea while we don't have any props to fire up our radio. It's right over there in charge. And make sure everything's behaving properly.
All right, ready?
Yep, I'm ready. There you go. Alright, so I believe that's this one.
Yep.
Alright.
Now, technically, differential would make us go.
Yep, so we have our throttle.
Go the right way.
And if I want to go to the right,
Yep.
that's going to pull to the right. If I want to go to the left,
I'll pull left.
what I do notice is my rudder's backwards.
Yep. So just reverse your rudder.
At this point, what we're going to do is now that this is powered up, we're going to go ahead and go through our channels and make sure that all the controls are the right directions, right?
Recenter everything.
And
So let's do
recenter
that.
everything.
Cool.
So elevator's touchdown. Is our trim centered in the radio?
Let me check. No, it's not.
But yeah, before you guys go and do this, make sure your trims are centered in your radio too, so you're basically not just doing backtracking work.
There we go.
Cool. Take care of. Oh, rudder rod.
This is where linkage stoppers do make things nice. Perfect. All right, and we have one aileron that's a little bit wonky. Wonderful. Now that we have everything centered up, now
fired up and good to go.
We're gonna go ahead and check for our throws. And in your kit, you're gonna have a little throw gauge, high and low rates. I'd strongly recommend starting with low rates, especially with the elevator, because of the short coupling nature on this. You got a lot of pitch sensitivity, and also the very narrow center of pressure on this. So we're gonna go ahead and just go around to our ailerons. Let's see here. There's our low rates, and if we want our high rates, you can dial that in, just like you see here.
Nice. Do you want for the switch show? I can hold that there.
Yep.
And you can hold it back.
So we got low rates, high rates. And we're going to go around to each control surface and we're going to adjust that. I strongly recommend just keeping your elevator right at low rates, but if you want to dial it in, make sure you have at least 30 to 40% expo on your high.
I don't use any of that stuff.
I know, you're awesome with your thumbs.
I'm just used to flying terrible airplanes.
The rest of us mere mortals have to do it normal.
Terrible airplanes. I just built so many of them.
So we're going to check on the door rates on the elevator, the aileron, and the rudder. And now at this point, we're ready to go ahead. We'll put some Velcro down, finish off our nose, and build our
let's
landing
go.
gear. If you're looking for the Velcro, it's popped in the kit right here. And you guys can go any side that you want. We oftentimes just say, well, fuzzy fuselage. So in this case, we're going to go fuzzy on the fuselage. And before we put this down, I'm going to reinforce with just a little bit of tape.
About how much do you use?
Usually about 4 inches.
4 inches? Okay, cool.
I'm going to go ahead and cut this to the width of the inside of our fuselage, just to give it a little bit of reinforcement here.
4 inches is quite a bit. But okay.
That's fine. That way you have plenty of area.
This is for the plane. Yeah, I forgot.
Fuselage, yeah. I'm just gonna cut this off, just like you see it right here. There we go. Perfect, my friend.
There you go.
I'm gonna place this down in here, right along the center line. And now we can take our nose piece that we had, and you can see, although it's a mess of wires, the top here is very clean now. Now we can go ahead. What I like to do is oftentimes just take this, put this down in, go all the way to the back. And we'll put our nose down here. Now we can go ahead and here. Now we have two choices here. We can either hot glue this, or we can tape it. I'm probably going to lean towards hot glue.
Hot glue, cool. Yeah. You're the master at this.
Just put this a bead down. Perfect.
You've been doing it the longest, I guess.
No.
As far as the foam board and stuff. My
No.
favorite's Depron.
You are a master at Depron, brother. There we go. The reason I like the hot glue with this, it just keeps it a little bit stronger, but also then it won't start working off. If you ever need to cut it off, just make a tape hinge in. All right. Also, while we have this upside down, we're happy with all our connections. Everything's the way we want it. Why don't we just go ahead and put a little piece of tape and tape this up. I really like this tape, man.
It's the only stuff I use.
You can see why.
Mainly because I have like no strength. I use it for strength too.
All right. Last step in this process is we're going to take our barbecue skewer. And then we're going to line this up here. What I like to do is not to try to go through one end out the other. Actually, just go through the one end and then go on the opposite side and then pop to that end. Reason being is that way you have a nice even path from one point to the other. Twisting like a drill bit really helps. And I don't want this to stick out too far, so I'm just going to give it just far enough.
And then chop off the piece.
Yep. And the easiest way to cut these is if you put your nail down, roll this back and forth. Also, if you have a pair of wire cutters or wire strippers, it compresses on all sides at once. You can turn that off. And it cuts really nice. There we are.
Cool.
All right. Our last step is our landing gear.
It's the part I hate the most.
No one likes landing gears. I'm definitely one of them too. Now this one wire will actually make both sides of your landing gear, but you're going to want to be careful about it. So the first step is to cut it perfectly in half. Right now it's 15 and a half, and that's 7 3/4.
Yep. Yeah, 7 3/4 for sure.
There we go. Now, the most important thing as far as when bending your landing gear is not necessarily to go ahead and hit the measurements every time. It's bend your first one as close as possible to the measurements.
And then copy the other one.
And then copy the other one. You got it. And also, in our kit, we do include the wheel kit. That's what the popsicle stir, or the coffee stir is for, and the foam wheels. But one thing we really like is the wheels that we carry. They offer a lot better traction.
Definitely, I'd say so. And they look a lot cooler, too.
Yeah. So we have two lengths that are both equal to each other. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bend the portion that's going to be the torsion bar going through our pod. And that's going to be about 1 5/8. Here we are. And for the metric side, we're going to have about...
Centimeters is a metric. Centimeters?
Yeah,
Meters?
centimeters,
Okay.
yep. Yes. For the metric side, we're going to have 4 centimeters. So we're going to go ahead and bend on that. 90 degrees, just as you see right here. Now, where the other one actually was a torsion bar and actually was a keeper for the back of the pod, we're going to go right on along the back.
Cool.
And that's going to be 2 3/4. So I like to put my little thumb here, right here, and kind of get an indication. And then for the metric mark, 2 3/4 equates to 7 centimeters. And from this point, we're going to bend 90 degrees. Up until now, it doesn't really matter too much. And you're going to see I'm just going to keep this angle just slightly larger than 90 degrees. A little more obtuse.
Now you're just being acute.
Last angle is another 2 3/4. Here we go. It's a lot easier to grab the short end with pliers than it is to try to bend
that
you got
there.
it. And this angle, the only thing we got to concentrate now is we got to match this curve right here. You can see we kept it kind of nice and narrow because we don't need much surface area. This guy right here. At this point, we only have to match it up with this, or make a second one, but match up these dimensions. And we're going to do a full mirror of the piece. So there's no reason to go back to your plane. You always go back to your landing gear. Kind of compare these two.
Very nice. They're almost like made out of machine. Josh is a machine.
I don't know about that. You saw how clumsy I was with those wires.
A machine that needs to be oiled.
Here we are. We got two copied halves. Don't fret, take your time about this. If it doesn't work out perfectly, just go back and rebend another set here. This is very easy. This is a 0.063 gauge wire. We use 3 sizes with our models.
Yeah, this is a Pino wire, isn't it?
It's, spring wire.
Pino wire, spring steel wire.
Spring steel wire, you got it. So this is 0.063 inch diameter. We also use 1/10 of an inch diameter, and on our big Krakens we use 1.25, which is really hard to bend.
Yeah.
It doesn't look that much bigger.
It's going to be bad.
It is bad. Use a vise on that one. At this point, everyone's desk is probably looking about the same, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, this is a little on the clean side. We totally
it's getting pretty
stuff everywhere.
It's getting pretty messy. We're going to go ahead and install our landing gear now. And the easiest way for a reference mark here, we want this to go ahead and be forward of the CG, but not to the point where it's hard to pivot to rotate, and also not to the point where the prop hits it. The easiest indication I can give you is where this bend is here. If you followed our measurements, follow the crease line of our little cover hatch here. And simply go ahead and with the rotation, punch her into the foam there. And just with a rocking motion, we're going to just drive this right through all the way to the other side. The whole purpose of this is just to give torsional value. It's going to pop just out the other side like that. Now at this point, we have a couple different options. We could just tape this on the side, but what I like to do is take a razor blade and follow the edge as you see it right here, and actually crease it in just a little bit. Don't cut all the way through your pod or you're going to compromise your strength. What you can see here is I actually open up this little crease right here. Little groove. That's all it needs. And now what I can do is I can nestle this in and smear a bead of hot glue over it, and it's going to be nice and strong. Now obviously this is making the landing gear where it's not removable, so if you need it to be removable, go ahead and just use some tape. Alright, scrap piece of foam.
Yeah.
I'll just use a throw gauge.
Okay, cool.
We're done with that, right?
Yep. I guess you could say you just throw it out.
There we are. We're just going to let this dry. This is very common to the P-51 Mustang, the Kraken. It's a very, very strong way to do a glue joint. And if God forbid it does break out, you simply just re-glue it back in. But all the force of the foam is supporting your landing gear. Now you can just simply slide this on. So you can use a wheel collar, or what we like to do is just take our hot glue gun, just put it right in that tip there and make a little bulb and let it dry. We're going to repeat the exact same process on the other side. While I'm putting this other landing gear in, Peter's going to be getting the props. Now one thing that we definitely did through this whole entire build is we left the props off the motors. That's because when we were dialing in, we had differential thrust, we had a lot of things going on here. I'd strongly encourage you, it sounds like something, oh I'll be careful, don't put the props on until you're ready for the very final steps when everything is dialed in. That's the safest way to do it. It'll keep you from accidentally reversing something, have it fly through the living room, your wife get mad at you and you never get to fly again.
I give you props for giving them that tip.
Thank you very much. Hey, nice props.
There you go.
Alrighty. Now the motors we're using on this are the Emax 1806. They're 2280 kV. Nice thing about these ones is they swing a prop very efficiently with a 6.3 on a 2-cell, but also they can actually go to a 6.3 on a 3-cell as well too. Yeah. And that provides a huge amount of power. We really like it because even on the small planes you can still fly a very light setup, but on a 2-cell you can go down to 5-inch. You have a very docile.
Actually, you go to 2-cell to 6-inch. That's pretty much the normal.
Yeah.
And when people go to 3S, they go to the 5 inches.
Yeah.
It'll just keep the amperage covered.
This keeps both of them, but if they want a real light power setup, to be real soft on the sticks, because this still has a tremendous amount of power. They can even go down to 5-inch. It's just even weaker, right?
Yeah, it's better for someone that needs a little throttle management help.
Cool.
Josh.
But on the cruiser, we want to go crazy, right?
Yeah, let's go fast.
And just for some durability, while we have it on its back here, we're going to go ahead and put a little tiny tail skid. Because we have differential thrust, this will have amazing amount of ground control to it. So we don't want to go ahead and sand this down, especially when you're doing donuts on the ground, right? Our last step in the process is to go ahead and place our battery. Now the battery placement is very important because that's going to establish the proper CG. What CG is the center of gravity. Without proper center of gravity, you're going to have a very bad flight characteristics. We have a link down below to a video with 6 quick tips for a successful first flight. If you've never flown before, we challenge you to watch that, but also our beginner series is going to give you very powerful tips to have a really great experience, and that's what we want for you. For this, we're going to go ahead and lay this battery pack right up in the nose. And this is going to be the placement here. I'm just going to go ahead and close this hatch to get an accurate CG reading. We'll show you how we simply do CG. On the bottom here, you have 2 markings. We're simply going to place our fingers on both sides of that, and what we want is the nose to be slightly down. Just as you see right here. That's perfect. We're happy with it.
Let's go cruising.
At this point, what I'd challenge you is once you have a successful flight, you really like the way it flies, take a black Sharpie marker, make 2 hash marks, and then write the milliamp power of the battery there. That way, as you switch batteries, you know exactly where to pop it down to get the proper CG.
I'm too lazy for that. I'm just going to throw any battery
But
there
it
and go
works.
fly it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and make our connections, and we'll go ahead and maiden her. All right, Peter.
Ready
We
for
got
flight?
yep, we got our mini cruiser all built. The props are on safely. Everything's checked out. Our control surface are away. Our balance is established. Next thing to do is fly it.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to take it off?
Yeah. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. You got a 2-cell power setup? Yeah.
I dare you land on the roof.
No. Oh, it feels so nice. This is a 2-cell power setup.
It's going really nice on the it's not too fast, it's not slow. Nice.
You know what, I want to lay this over for a 2-cell one too. There's something about you to play this small, you swear you shouldn't do that. Just stop. All right. What do you say? You know, normally we just do the maiden and we say goodbye. Let's put a 3-cell on. I want to see what a 3-cell will do on this
Yeah, let's
motor.
go fast.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Watch this. Look, I want to do an apex. There you go. Wait, I'm ready. Almost landed. That's good enough. It flies. Friends, we want to thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of the Flight Test family. And also thank you for the time for checking out the FT Mini Cruiser. Wait for the build on the cargo.
It's coming out really, really soon.
Yes. As a matter of fact, you're watching this. There's a good chance you can click over on another video and the build videos for that. We want you guys to fly together, make memories together, have fun together.
And crash airplanes together.
And crash airplanes together. See you next time.